turn of the tide. Let's work on this some more. What am I doing? Let me just play my game for 10 minutes real quick. Got some movement. It's feeling good. Snappy. Oh, hold up. Gotta start the timer. Doom clock. Oops. Oh no. I reset the doom clock. Does it not let me set hours? This is a lot of clicks. There we go. That's about what I want. All right. Okay, let's do it. Where was I? So what's next? So my idea is that there's some like core piece of the ship from which all of this functionality goes. And then we will be able to snap on additional pieces from there. And that this will mostly be squares. So while I just sat here and made this little cone-shaped ship, I think let's do let's do a piece that you can snap onto the ship. Which will mean making the ship into a square again, I think. Whoa. That doesn't fill the whole box? Why is that? Enable constrained proportions. Oh, I see. That's new. All right. Why is the square so small? Why are there 3 squares in here? Square, square with border, square. Odd. Oh, this rigid body doesn't have a collider. I don't know if you could do that before. Let's add a collider. What are the proportions of this triangle? 256. 256. Why is the triangle so much bigger than the square? This is weird. Oh, well now it's proportional. Is this whole thing just bigger than it's supposed to be? All right. Square ship, square ship. bit more. All right, so let's create a little module here. Let's make a gun. Maybe I want to zoom the camera in a little bit. Oh, this thing is smaller. Like that. Every ship needs a gun, right? Do we want shooty powers? I guess let's start by making the gun piece just attached to the ship manually, and then we'll start working on the code to be able to kind of build and add and remove things once we have a piece to add or remove. So let's make a gun. Guns are red, right? I think all guns are red. Actually, no, let's go with like a cool color for the weapons and like a warm color for the thrusters. You can always vice versa that later, but for now, just to make them distinguishable. And I'm actually going to make a gun object that doesn't have the sprite on it so that we can recenter things inside of it. So here's the gun. I'm going to offset it 1 unit that way. Whoops. And then I'm going to make the triangle the graphical part of the gun. Let's make it just reach till it touches. I guess this is fine. Sticks forward a little bit. I kind of want it to fit inside a bounding box, so just manually scoot it down a tiny bit. And go from there. And yeah, no colliders or anything on this yet. And let's make a gun script. Pulse laser. That sounds a lot cooler than triangle gun, right? Pop a pulse laser on there. How do we want to do this? Let's give it a bullet prefab. And when you push a button, have it shoot. Start with spacebar. Get key down checks if it's pressed this frame so that it doesn't fire over and over while you hold it down. Get key would fire every frame, but get key down would fire only once. Spacebar. Let's see, I want to set its position to I want to set its position to my position. And I think I want to set its rotation to my rotation. So that if I'm faced to the right, the bullet also faces to the right. We want it faced in the direction that we are faced, I believe. Let's make a bullet. First prefab. What am I doing? Let's make a bullet. I'm gonna make it and then prefab it. I don't know why I'm creating a blank prefab here. Sprites. Capsule? That looks like a bullet. Shrink it. There is a hotkey in Unity to switch between like scale tool and position tool and all that stuff, and I don't know the hotkey. I really should. Let's make it the same color as our triangle. Do we want our projectiles to travel with rigid body physics? Or just scripted movement? At this stage. They're not going to... This is going to travel at a... Yeah, we want rigid bodies on them, I think. No gravity. I guess the bullet can govern its own trajectory. Or the gun can set the bullet's trajectory. What's the right way to think about this? I think I'm just going to make a super simple bullet script that just goes in a straight line. Not velocity, speed. What am I doing? Set the velocity when we're instantiated to... We're just going to do this on enable, I guess. going to check the resolution order here. See if this gets set properly. So our gun needs a bullet. Pulse laser bullet. Let's prefab it. Give our gun... Oh. I put the... Put the brains of the gun on the triangle instead of on the gun parent. So let's remove that. Hello, welcome back. Making bullets, as all good games should have. Give it a speed of, I don't know, how fast the bullet go. We're gonna find out. Let's give our gun a bullet and see what happens. We have a gun. What happens when we spacebar? Oh, look at that. I did vector 2 up instead of transform up. All the bullets were going global up instead of in the direction the gun's pointed. There we go. That's a gun. Easy peasy. Pew, 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 pew. Looks like they're rotated the correct way. How's that for speed? That look like a laser. Stick another one on there. Double up. Can't see the code. It is C#. C# Unity, yes. Pew, 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 pew. So it feels like they're coming out slightly delayed and offset because they are coming not from the front tip of the gun, but from the middle of the gun. So I think these guns need a fire point. So we're going to do that. Let's give these guns a fire point that is where the projectiles originate from. Put it right up here, and since it's invisible, you can actually give them little tags. Oh, they're not showing up. I think I have the little widgets toggled off for some reason. Or they're just too small to see. Let's see. Gizmos. Everything should be visible. I don't remember where you toggle whether these little icons are visible. I'm gonna Google it real quick. Alt-click a game object's visibility icon to hide or show the game object only. Apparently alt-click, but that's for objects. There is a toggle for this. I don't know where it is. There's no icon option on this list. I don't know. Figure it out in a minute. Somewhere there's a place that you can toggle icon visibility. Oh. Oh, while you have the object selected, it doesn't show the icon. That's new behavior. That's why I was thrown off. Okay. Now those icons are a little big. There we go. Beautiful. Beautiful. So there's a fire point at the front of the gun. Instantiate from the fire point position. Let's make 2 of these. There we go. So now the projectile should come from the tip of the gun. That looks a bit better. You do see them flicker in a little bit, but I think it's fine. Could also just lower the fire points ever so slightly. Okay, cool. Yeah, that looks better. Now it looks like the lasers are coming from the tip instead of being offset when we're spinning or whatever. Pew, 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 pew. All right. The temptation to just play is real. Prefabs. Let's do ship things. Let's move all our prefabs in here. Bullets, guns. The ship as a whole. Okay. That's feeling pretty good. Maybe make these a little stretched so they look a little more like lasers. Like that. See how that looks. There. Beautiful. Now they have some direction to them. Okay, cool. Very simple, very effective. I'm actually gonna mess with this background a little bit. I'm gonna give this a little bit of a gradient. Whoops. It's very hard to see. Looks less like space now, but file could not be read. I switched over too quickly. Oh, my background image is massive. Whoopsie. There we go. Now the background has a little bit of a gradient so we can tell when we're moving. It's better. A little bit of texture, because when we were in these like black sections where you couldn't see the purple, it was impossible to tell how fast we were moving. Just need a little bit of reference point. I feel like the rotation is maybe a little sensitive still, but this is all very subjective. I'm going to turn it back a little bit. Oh, do I not have a variable to control that? Thought I made one. Yeah, it's nice to stream just to kind of stay on task and feel like I'm cramming in more productivity in the same amount of time, so I don't get distracted. And also it's fun to have input from people too, especially as I get deeper into this. I'm sure there will be stretches where it's coding and it's boring as hell to watch, but when I do add new features and test out stuff, it's going to be cool to have other eyeballs on it to get ideas and feedback and stuff, especially once I'm past kind of this starting phase. So let's see. What was I doing? Speaking of not getting distracted. Not your fault. My brain turned off. I was doing, oh yeah, the rotation force. So apply rotation force. I'm going to rename this rotation input. Make a variable called rotation force. Try a little bit less rotation force here. Is this even working? I set this to 0. Okay, yeah, can't turn anymore. I could barely tell it was reduced when it was cut in half. That's odd. There we go. All right, yeah, this was set too high. It feels a lot better at a lower rotation force. It was way too easy to kind of overspin and lose control before. I think I want this at about like 0.4. Max angular velocity at like 120 probably. It was just way too spinny. Very hard to control. Feels slippery. Yeah, that feels more deliberate now. You can still control your direction pretty well, but it doesn't feel as much like you're controlling a pinwheel in a windstorm. Nice, nice, nice. While we're at it, let's make the background color black. Because I'm noticing the blue lasers are disappearing against the blue background pretty hard. There we go. Instantly addictive. Nothing's happening. Can't stop playing. All right. So, good start. I have to set up some version control between sessions. I don't want to lose all this when my computer bursts into flames. But what else now? So, I think I would like to, let's make it so that you can snap on pieces. So how are we going to do this? My idea is that the ship body has like snap points, and that at snap points you can attach new pieces. So let's make snap points. What is a... Let's do little hexagons as the snap points. Just to give them a little visual so that you can tell where they are. Just give them a color that nothing else is using. The old classic missing texture magenta color. There we go. 11-year-olds. I have a 3. And he is plenty. He's plenty of 3 for me. Let's see. I'll do them in green. Trying to decide what color they should be. Yeah, I'll stick with the hot pink. Let's make them a little bigger. Yeah, my 3-year-old is something. He's a force of nature. He's a force of opinion. So here's a snap point. Let's think here. I want to have 2 of these. One on the left and one on the right. These are places where you can attach things to the ship. Eventually we can do hulls that are different shapes and have different configurations and stuff, but let's just start with a square with snap points on both sides. Super simple. And then let's make a script for these snap points. Don't know what it's going to do yet. It might just be a placeholder for now for other things to reference, but I'm going to give them a script to their name so that we can give them functionality when we want to. So just attach an empty script on there. And let's see. So I think, let me think. These pieces can have an orientation. All right, so let's back up a little bit. How's this going to behave? I think the idea was that the pieces that you attach, like guns and things, have snap points on them, and that the ship itself has snap points on it, and that you kind of click those together. Like Legos. So let's give our ship, that's ship controller. Let's do ship builder. We'll give the ship a separate component that governs all the building behavior so that we don't have all the movement code all cluttered up with all of the building code and everything else. And the shipbuilder should have a reference to all of the snap points. Could have it just grab these, but let's make it nice and explicit for now. Do it manually. So the ship has 2 snap points. First one, second one. So snap points need a direction. They need a direction that's kind of the direction that they're pointing. Which I think I can do with like a vector 2. But if we want this ship, so I'm already getting into some tricky decisions here. So if we want to put snap points on the ship so that you can kind of build things out in a grid, this is ultimately going to be like branching topology if you think about it. There's going to be no cycles. So like if I build out this way and around and then down and then back, there will be no reconnecting back here if I do this with just snap points originating from the center. But I think there should be cycles possible in it. So the way to think about this is with like some kind of underlying grid that you're filling things out into. So I think we're going to have to think of this in terms of like a square grid in order to have that kind of behavior, which I think is what I want. These are kind of complicated design decisions to get into early on, but I'm going to commit to doing it away, and then it can always be changed later. So I think I'm going to set these snap points to be like east and west, we can call them north, south, east, west, and then diagonals. Let's create the notion of directions here. Let's just call it direction, something real generic. This is an enum. With 4 values for now. We'll go counterclockwise, I guess. So east, north, west, south, because I think that's the direction that Unity uses for its rotations in 2D by default. Like if you do positive rotation, it goes in that order. So start with that. We'll give every snap point a direction. May end up totally redoing this later, but this will work for now. So every snap point has a direction, which is like it's facing. So we'll call this one snap point west. Give it the direction west. Call this one snap point east. Give it the direction east. Go ahead and turn these guns off for now. So now guns are going to have snap points as well. So let's take, let's remove these guns. We've got them prefabbed. All right. Let's give this gun like a background that shows how it fits in with the grid. Give it a slightly different color than the core part of the ship so you can tell what kind of the main fuselage of the ship is. All right, I gotta unpack this thing. I just want to copy this to work within the scene without it complaining about applying to the prefab the whole time. So, let's just give this gun some background here. It's got its triangle graphic, got its fire point, and let's give it some snap points. And we need to create a script that represents a buildable piece. So let's call it build piece. I before E? I think so. So the gun is a build piece, meaning it is a component that you can attach onto the ship. It's going to have attach points on the left and right and the back, I think. You can't attach a gun to where the tip of the gun is attached to part of the ship because then it's firing into itself. So I'm going to say that this thing has 3 snap points. It's got a west and an east. Move this out so we can see it separate. So here's a gun. It's got attach points at the west and the east and the back. Like that. All good. Yeah, engines definitely take a lot of the burden off. And it also really depends on the type of game you're making. There's games that take years and years and years and years and years, and there's games that you can make in a matter of hours if you're just going for like a prototype. And that makes a big difference as well. I'm working on a strategy game that is very large and takes a very long time, so I'm doing this project as kind of a palate cleanser just to get something finished because it's been a while since I finished a project, and I'd like to finish a project once in a while. Still nowhere near finished with this, but something achievable in a reasonable amount of time. So, build piece. Oh, I already have a build piece on there. I want this to work just like the ship controller where I have... Didn't I put something on the ship itself so that I could... Snap points. Where'd that go? Oh, right. I put it in a separate script. Ha! See how I was all like, I'm going to put this in a separate script so that it's nice and easy to manage, and then I just totally forgot where it was. Let's put snap points on the build pieces. Ha! Goodbye, laser. Goodbye. Sorry, just had to make sure the game was still fun for a second. It is. Because you push buttons and things happen. And that is all it takes. It's what we all crave. East. West. South. These all have the right direction set. Yep. All right. So, how do we do this? First of all, I want to be able to like use the mouse to like align a piece and then click to kind of snap it onto the ship. So first we need for the ship part itself to follow the mouse. So build piece. Follow Muse. That's my job. Well, we want the Z direction to stay the same. We want it to follow the mouse in the X and the Y. So the Z always stays the same. So what's the mouse's position in world space? The mouse's position in world space is camera.main dot there's a method that does this. Screen to world point. From the, I think we get the mouse position. I'm gonna try this and it's not gonna work, and that's fine. But I'm gonna do it wrong first and then figure out why it's wrong, in case it just magically works. Oh my goodness, look at that. See, incredible. All right, so does it look doubled? Nah, it's just a little bit of aliasing. All right, so we've got the piece following the mouse. Next, we want it to snap on to the ship. Whoa. So I think when I get it close to the ship, ooh, that's twitching. Why is it twitching? I think maybe this is supposed to be in late update. There is a trick to this. It's twitching because of some like rounding error with the frame timings and everything. Maybe it's fixed update. Let me see. Oh, late update did it. We just have to move it at the right stage of the process for it not to twitch. Cool, fixed. Easy peasy. All right. So I think I want it for now to where whatever snap point you're closest to on the ship or within a certain radius, it will automatically kind of snap into position, highlight, and then you can click to like stamp it on there. So we need a way to detect what the nearest snap point on the ship is. And there's a few ways to do that. You can just straight compare the distance from the mouse to each of the snap points on the ship and see which one's closest. But then as the ship grows and has hundreds of snap points, you're checking that continually against all of them. So eventually we want to do it smarter than that. Another way to do it would be to put a little trigger or collider on each of the snap points and then to check like collision in a bubble around the piece so that when you get close enough for something to be inside the bubble, it starts paying attention to it. And then it does the comparison on those. But that would require the same functionality anyway. It would just be kind of an optimization to it. So either way, we're comparing distance to the snap points. So I think what we want to do is start off by doing it the dumb way. Compare the distance from the piece's position to each of the snap points on the ship. Which means we need a reference to the ship. In theory, there's only ever going to be one ship. So we can actually do this the dumb way. And just grab a reference to ship builder. Do this on enable so that if we turn off a piece and then change scenes or something, it'll re-find the correct one. So find any object by type. Find first object by type. What is the difference between find any and find first? Does find any return multiple? Find first is a new thing. Find any object by type returns. I think both of these only return one object, so I'm not sure of the difference between these two methods. Find first object by type returns the oldest. Find any doesn't sort and is therefore faster. Oh, find first means like first instantiated, not just like the first one that we find. That is odd. It's a new method and I don't like it. I guess it could have its uses, but it seems real janky. Let's grab a reference to the ship builder. Let's update our current task, shall we? I didn't do that the whole time I was working on the lasers. All right. Working on shipbuilding. Okay. So, when we get close to one of these snap points, let's see, build piece, follow mouse. Let's see, on update, I want to try snap. Make a method called try snap that's going to search for the nearest snap point, and if it's there, if there is a snap point within range, we will snap to it. And if there is not, we will follow the mouse instead. That's the plan. Actually, I'm going to take a bathroom break. Be right back. You get to stare at my beautiful wall. Look at my precious time ticking away. All right, let's keep going. All right. Let's check the distance to all of the snap points that we can find. Let's ask the ship to give us all of the available snap points. Or shipbuilder. There we go. For now, this is just going to return all the snap points, and then we'll add the notion of them being used up, blocked, whatever, afterwards. Okay, so we start off by saying there's no snap point that we're targeting. Then we're going to ask the ship for a reference to all of the available places where we could snap on. For each of them, we're going to check the distance to them. Check the distance. From my position to snap point's position. If the distance is less than snap distance, eventually we're going to want to move this variable to somewhere else. Actually here. I think we want this to just be a permanent unchangeable value that we set in hard code. So final is the way to do that in C#. Let me check this real quick. Public static. Can you do static read only? Snap distance, we'll call it like 2. I don't know what the capitalization in C# prevention is for this. If you're doing a read-only, what's the style? Read-only static field, Pascal case. If it's public, doesn't matter if it's, okay, got it. Snap distance, so I think it's caps on the first. Getting fiddly here. If it's less than snap distance, I'm going to do another if here. Actually, let's just if that and okay, let's clean this up a little bit. The distance is that. Something broke. What did I break? Something up here. My codes, my codes. Okay, yeah, something screwed up. I've syntaxed myself. Is my screw up in here? Yes, it is. Oh. I put a private in there for no reason. Womp. Alright, so we're going to compare to each snap point. If the distance is less than snap distance and the distance is less than min distance, then min distance equals distance, targeted snap point equals the snap point. I'm going to move this outside here because I'm going to be checking it from other methods. So every time we try to snap, I'm going to set this to null again. Clear it out. Try snap. And then if the targeted snap point is not null, then we snap. Let's just call snap. Stop it. Stop it autocomplete. Else. Don't really need an else here, but I'm just doing it to make it nice and clean looking, because we could just return off of that. And when we snap, what do we do? For now, I'm just going to set this to so we snap or we follow the mouse. Check every frame. See how this goes. In theory, this should work in the dumb way. Oh. Why is this internal? Save and compile everything. Let's give this a test. Oh, hello. It seems to be snapped forever, no matter how far I move away. So, something's not getting checked right. Let's try just kicking straight to follow mouse here. Double check that I didn't. I just want to narrow down where the issue's happening. Okay, so that follows the mouse all the time. So this targeted snap point is never null. And that is what's happening. Let's try shrinking the snap distance. Should be well outside that though, because this is the unit grid, so the distance of 2 is pretty far already. Oh, okay. Cool. So it did work for a second. It's just getting stuck once it snaps. It never unsnaps. Oh, I see. I think I know what's wrong. Update, try snap. For each snap point. Oh, I see. I'm checking the distance from the ship part to the snap point, and once it's sent there, it's always in snap range because it's on top of it. I'm not checking from the mouse. That's what I'm doing wrong. So what I need to do is get the mouse position and compare that, not the available snap points. Let's just do this here as well. World space mouse position. Okay, so I'm checking the distance from the mouse to the snap point, not from the part to the snap point. Otherwise it just snaps and stays forever, because then it's close to the snap point and never leaves. All right. I was thinking about that wrong. So the piece follows the mouse, and then when we get close to a snap point, it goes, okay, I can attach here. Now it's not snapping on quite right, but that's okay. Look at that. Look at that. Not bad. That's progress. Okay, cool. So this basic functionality works, but I want there to be kind of an underlying grid that we're thinking about. And for all the pieces to fit on that grid in some way. So we're going to need to think about how we kind of translate into local space relative to the ship. Let me think. So I think what we're going to do is come up with a notion of like cells. So the center part of the ship is basically in the 0, 0 shell. One space over is like -1, 0. This is +1, 0. So we'll have kind of a grid of locations relative to the ship. And each snap point should tie to one of those locations. Just thinking through. Kind of noodling on how this is going to work on the back end. Okay. It's the exciting part of programming. Sitting in silence, thinking through a process. Okay. So I think going to create an array of cells that is, let's just start by like doing a grid of cells that's like 10 in every direction from the ship. That's not going to be visible to the user, but we'll just block it out in memory and set that as kind of an outer bound to how far out you can build from the center. It's adjustable. But let's start with that, and we'll do it all in an array so that we have a nice little data structure to store these things in. Because what I eventually want is to know what pieces are adjacent to what pieces, and if you just fill in the whole grid, then the ones in the middle are going to be connected to multiple different things. I don't just want a branching tree rooting back to the original part of the ship that everything's connecting to. Because then if a part gets blown up, or we want to do realistic damage to the ship, where like if a part gets blown off, everything upstream from it blows off, we want to be able to calculate whether each piece has a continuous path back to the ship, i.e. whether it's still connected to the ship. I'm sort of solving problems that aren't going to be problems for a long time still, but I want to kind of think through this to decide how to lay it out. So I'm thinking instead of each piece you attach just having a reference to the piece it snapped onto, I want to have an underlying grid and everything knows what its adjacencies are, basically. So let's go ahead and make a grid of parts. Ship builder. And I guess this is just a big 2D array. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll do a big 2D array, since that's what it is. says I'm playing Minecraft. What is this nonsense? That ain't right. Please hold. Edit. Let's see. Thumbnail, playlist, audience, blah, 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 blah. Is that on Twitch that it says I'm playing Minecraft? Hold on. Why would it have done that to me? Had all these settings saved. Edit. Where's that description? This must be on YouTube. I guess if you pick gaming, okay, hold on. Go live, stream live, edit. Why would it say I'm playing Minecraft? In the description under my... It says category gaming, game title none. And my description should say something about... I'll try resaving the description. Very odd. I have it set to game title none on YouTube, and I'm assuming you're talking about YouTube. I don't know why it would be saying Minecraft. I'll have to figure that out. Like, I'm assuming maybe Minecraft is the default if you don't specify a game. But it should just say no game, in theory. Odd. Might have to figure that out between streams so as not to get bogged down on it right now. Thank you for pointing it out, though. Interesting. Anyway. So this is a build piece, a 2D array, I may actually create a class called build slot here, so that I can specify kind of whether they're open or closed or blocked and what references they have to other pieces and all that. I think I might do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a class called build slot. Typo. I'm going to delete and remake that because it'll give it the wrong class name and then screw up when I try to change it. Hello, hello. How's it going? Build slot. This is not a mono behavior. This is just a good old-fashioned class. East, north, west, south is a reminder of the order that these are going to be. So each build slot knows what its neighbors are. And has a build piece. That is null by default. And they have 4 neighbors addressed in that order. And so each build slot has 4 neighbors and potentially 1 build piece. Just null initially, just to be explicit about it. Hey, how's it going? No, thank you. I don't think I have time for that in my life. All right, so the ship builder has all of these build slots. Is open. Make it a property. Return. Give this a way to check if the slot is open or not. And check if a piece fits. Which I'll just, for now I'm just going to return true if this is open. So any piece fits as long as the slot is open for now. We can put in rules so that you can check if a given piece fits in, like so that you can't snap in a laser so that it is pointed directly at a wall of the ship or something like that. Did you want to teach me a particular Russian word? All right. Snap, 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 snap. Pew, 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 pew. See, this is totally a game. Is this not totally a game? It's totally a game. Build slot, build piece, ship builder. So I need to define the edges of, let's kill this for a second. Let's think through how we're going to initialize this whole data structure. So we need to define boundaries of how big you can build the ship. So suppose this is your centerpiece, and you can go like 5 in this direction, 5 in that direction, maybe like 2 or 3 up and 5 back or whatever. I think I should set the bounds here. I think there's a bounds object. How does it work? Center plus extents. Did I scare off my Russian viewer? I can learn one word. All right, so I want to define the boundaries of the maximum, minimum indices on all of these. Can you edit bounds? Let's see if these are serialized in the inspector. I'm going to test a couple things here for how we can define the boundaries of the shipbuilding box. There we go. Extent. We set the center to 0, 0, 0 and the extents, but then we can't set... Okay, I'm just setting this as 4 separate variables. Okay. Just doing this the dirty, dumb way. So here's my extents. Minimum, maximum, minimum, maximum. So we'll say it can go -5 in the x direction, +5 in that x direction, minimum y in that direction, and we'll say that you could go up to 2 steps in front of the ship. So if this is like the cockpit of the ship here, we'll say that you can kind of go out 5 steps here, out 5 steps here, back 5 steps here. So anywhere in this region you can build, and then like 2 steps in front, so that this is kind of the legal buildable area. And this is totally adjustable. We'll make it also that we can tweak this on the fly and make it whatever feels good. So let's set up a little data structure for our buildable area here. Initialize the build area. So this will happen once on start. And we'll make our little data structure. So for an I equals 0, I equals min x, I less than equal to max x. To max y, min y. Oops, there we go. Typo. Boop. Let's get my syntax right. All right. Let's initialize this big 2D array. This is how many in the x direction? Max minus minimum. So if maximum is 1 and minimum is -1, this would give us 2. So that needs to be +1 to account for the 0 column. Whoops. Same thing in the y direction. Is this easier to read spaced out or all crammed in? Okay, so we initialize our build slots. Now, how do we index into this thing? Build slots. So we're going to start with I minus min x, j minus min y, so that this starts at 0 and then counts up to however many iterations we're doing. I think this is right. So we're going through the whole array and filling it out with build slots. I think this is right. I'm gonna test this, make sure it doesn't throw any errors by going off the bounds of the array or something. Hi, how's it going? Working on building spaceships. See, it's a game. Give me money. All right. Building an arcadey ship, for anybody that wasn't here at the beginning. Building kind of an arcade style asteroidsy game, but where you get to build and customize your ship from pieces. It's not a completely new idea. Games like this have been done, but there's a lot of design space to play with here, so it seems like a fun hobby project. So gonna be cranking this whole thing out in 40 hours. Let's see. Or trying to. Gonna see how much I can get done in 40 hours. So initializing this array, it's not throwing any errors, so that's good. All right. I keep getting absorbed in tinkering around with the controls. So I am creating this like data structure, and let me visualize this whole thing a little bit. So I'm going to make a little sprite here. I'm gonna go just a tiny little image. And go like go like 12 by 12. Fill this in, cut a chunk out of it, like that. Flip it. Yep. Flip it in the vertical direction. Yep. Have a nice little sprite to visualize where the slots are that we can build. Let's drag one into the scene. Whoop. Huh. Pixels per unit. 64. There we go. That looks more like the right size, right? Yeah. So now it's going to create this whole little grid of slots here. May even just like fill in just like fill in the whole interior part of this with like alpha. I just give it a little hazy fill. There we go. Look at that. That looks nice. That looks like a slot where you can put a piece. Flip it good. So now for each I'm just going to make a little method that'll visualize the whole build area by making little sprites to show where all the build slots are. This is not something that is going to stay in, and it's not something that the user's going to see ultimately. Not all of the slots at once, but I just want to kind of add an option to visualize everything. So let's actually give each of these like an index or a how do we want to do this? Going to give it an X and a Y. And assign them. think this is not... Yeah, I'm going to do it a little cleaner. Just make this a little more readable. All right. Let each of the slots kind of know its position here. Or does it need to know that? Maybe each slot doesn't need to know that. Hold on, I'm kind of double coding this information because we know they're X and Y by where they are stored in the array, and that's fine. Build slot. Let's kill this for now. I think I'm kind of double coding information that I don't need. So we create a build slot. So actually, I made these not mono behaviors, but I think I want them to be. I want these to be actual things in space that exist so that we can attach visuals to them and get their positions and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to make these mono behaviors. And I'm going to make a prefab for them. What did I do? Oh, my bad. Just left some straight code in there. All right. So let's make a prefab of a build slot. Build slot component. Don't need any of that stuff yet. Let's make a prefab of it. And let's give this shipbuilder thing a reference to that prefab. Object. Make the prefab for it. Give it a reference to the prefab. There's our build slot prefab. And as it creates each of these, we'll instantiate one, grab a reference to it, put it into the appropriate slot. All right. Thank you. Yeah, this is going to be, it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of hours, but hopefully pretty rewarding to see how far I can get, and probably end up with something cool by the end of it. Game jams are a thing that people do pretty commonly, where people try to make a game in like a 48-hour period. I'm basically doing that, but instead of destroying my brain and body trying to marathon an entire weekend, I'm just spreading it out over like 2 weeks, just doing it in sessions. So it's just kind of doing a classic game jam, but doing it in a little bit more of a loose sort of way, and doing it completely solo. People do these type of things in teams a lot. I won't hesitate to badger some people for input here and there if I maybe go looking for some help with art and sprites and stuff, but I'm going to try to do most of it myself and just keep it very simple. Okay, so creating a build slot for each of the entries in the 2D array and slotting them in, and then parent them to us. So we're going to create the slots and then grab onto them and then set them to local position. From min x to max x, this should just be ij, I think, because I'm going all the way from the most negative to the most positive, and everything is in units of 1. So like one piece of the ship is going to be a 1x1 square block. Would help if I did this right, though. I want to keep the Z. Keep the Z position, whatever it's set to by default. New vector 2. Oh, vector 3. Yeah, I want to keep its Z position the same that it was, but then set its I and J to this. Okay, well, let's see what happens when I play here. It should make a pretty looking grid of squares all around the ship in the places where you can build things. That might not happen. It did not happen. It made one build slot. Oh. Did I set the bounds? I didn't. Let's set the minimum y to 5, the minimum x to 5, the maximum x to 5, minimum y to -5, maximum y to 2, I think was what I said. Let's try this. Pretty stuff. Hey, look at that. Stuff happening. So this is the hidden grid of all of the slots that you can build things onto the ship in. And we can easily adjust kind of this bounding box, but these are for now like the outer limits for where you can put parts on the ship. And obviously they'll need to be placed in spots where you have attachment points and nothing else blocking them and all that. There's going to be conditions for what you can put where. But here is the grid. Not bad. That worked out pretty quickly. There's a lot of slots. Fade them out a little bit. Can make them pulse like this. That's the thing I'll probably end up doing. Maybe I'll give them a slight bluish or greenish tinge to them. Why not in between? It's a little minty green. I'm gonna do it like this. Something that reads like kind of a high-tech overlay thing. So I'm gonna do this. Apply that color to the prefab. So now it should just pop up that way. Nice. Cool. So we've got a little template for shipbuilding here. See, I'm trying to assign colors and stuff, but my background is some weird arbitrary. Yeah, like when we're out in space, this green looks nice, and then when I go over top of ugly background, it starts looking all muddled and weird. That color looks less nice when I'm on like burgundy space back here. Okay, but this looks cool. And we've got our snap points kind of snapping. This is a lot of pieces coming together. All right. Okay, so we've got our build slots. Now, each one of these slots needs to have a reference to its neighbors, at least up, down, left, and right. I think if we're using a square grid, we probably don't want things to be able to attach on diagonals because that'll just look weird. So I think each of these slots needs to have references to its north, south, east, and west neighbors in order for things to snap together. And so we need to give all of those references to each other so that we can ask each slot, hey, do you have a west neighbor? Do you have a north neighbor? Do you have an east neighbor? We can then use that to kind of traverse and do searches and see how things attach together and all of that. So a lot of the things we're going to want to be able to do with the ship, we're going to need for this to be like a data structure where all the things are pointed at each other. So let's go through and give references to all the neighbors. So we're going to iterate through the whole thing again, except this time assigning things neighbor references. So slot equals build slot at that point. And then we want to oh, my bad. Current slot. Okay, so we're gonna fill all those slots. And then after we fill all those slots, we're gonna iterate through all of them and give them all references to their neighbors. Will there be enemies? What kind? I don't have a clear picture of the kind of story of the game. So we're calling it generic Space Invaders for now. But I think there will be enemy ships or space monsters of some kind, one or the other. They might be mechanical things. They might be like Cthulhu-y things. Other space-dwelling horrors. I don't know. There's actually a sweet... Let me pull this up real quick. There's an old game on Sega Genesis from back in the day that had lots of really cool, like, outer space hell monsters that looked really gross and cool. Let me pull this up real quick. Look at this game. I would love to do something kind of retro-y and freaky like this. This game was called Subterranea, and look at this. This was like a boss monster. It's just like a giant floating head that spits projectiles. It's the same kind of like Asteroids-y game where you have a ship that you're rotating around and shooting stuff and maneuvering through levels. It had these like really gnarly like monsters in it that are real freaky looking. You kind of shoot parts off of them. I think this type of thing would be really cool. I don't know. I don't think there's any reason to do just like boring space robots. I think I want to do like cool, like there was like insects and stuff. This actually played kind of like Lunar Lander. The game had gravity in it, so your ship would sink and you were fighting against gravity the whole time. It's actually super hard, obnoxiously tricky game. Not necessarily a fun game, but a really cool looking game. But yeah, the main takeaway is doing some sort of big freaky monsters that are maybe not your typical space monsters would be fun. I don't know. But then there's also like enemies that are more like, yeah, robotic things, like alien technology fighters that spit things at you. And I think something like this would be cool, but I haven't really decided. Gonna keep noodling on it while I work. But yeah, presumably there will be enemies that fly around with some sort of AI and shoot things at you. So there's a little bit of bullet hell and a little bit of that Space Invader-y kind of component to it. All right, so we're gonna grab each slot. And then greater than or equal to minimum X. We're just checking if we're going off the bounds, like if we're going off the side. So we're saying if there's an open slot to the left of us, then neighbors east 2 equals, because it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, where it's east, north, west, south. So we're looking west. We're saying if I minus 1 is greater than or equal to min x, then this equals build slots is my index minus 1 and my y. And then we're going to do 4 of these. We're checking west, east, north, west, south. So this is going to be like east, north, west, south. And we're saying, so let's do east. That means if my index plus 1 on the x-axis is less than or equal to max x, plus 1 wait, I think I did this wrong. No, never mind. This is fine. Plus 1, 0. And then this is north. So if j plus 1 is less than or equal to max y, then plus 1. Okay, I'm going to double check this all at the end. I'm just sort of thinking through it while I type. I've done 3D game stuff, yeah. I tend to like to play and work on 2D games more for some reason. I don't know why. I've definitely had 3D games that I love playing and that I've worked on, but I tend towards 2D. I like a lot of the kind of smaller indie games that focus a little bit more on systems and a little bit less on graphics. I even like text-based games and like, what's the term? Like mud-inspired things like Caves of Cud and that type of thing. I don't know. I gravitate towards like really ugly or simple looking games that have kind of interesting systems designed to them a lot of the time. Not as a hard and fast rule, but just tend to. So this is j minus 1. Min j greater than or equal to min j. Oh, min y. Okay. Let me proofread this here. Rest my brain for 2 seconds. So we're checking if the thing to our, let's do this, east, north, west, south. But yes, I actually, with some grad school friends of mine, worked on a 3D game that came out on Steam called Home Improvisation. It's like a furniture building simulator, kind of poking fun at IKEA. And some big streamers did videos on it, Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie, and it got some press. It was a game jam project that kind of went viral, and we worked on it and put that out. And I've done lots of 3D game prototypes or like smaller projects in a marketing job that I had for a few years, where I was doing lots of kind of game development, doing some VR stuff and some AR stuff. So I've done a lot of 3D work, but I tend to like working on 2D games more. Okay, so east, we're looking at if I plus 1 is less than or equal to max x, then our eastern neighbor is the one that is plus 1 from us. That makes sense. And then west is the reverse. I minus 1 is greater than or equal to the minimum x. Then our neighbor to the left is that one, okay? And then north is j plus 1 is less than or equal to max y. Equals j plus 1, okay, that checks out. And then if j minus 1 is greater than or equal to minimum y, then minus 1. Okay, I think I did all this right. I don't see any typos. I might be thinking about it wrong, but to my eyeballs, it looks like I did this right. So I'm going to run it and just see. It's not going to be immediately evident if I did it wrong, but it will throw errors if I did something egregiously wrong. So I'm just going to run it and see if it throws errors. Nope, no errors. All right. The code didn't detect anything wrong. So that's good. Yeah, I've done a lot of game dev. I went to school for it and then did some indie dev for a couple of years, doing a mix of contract projects and one small project on Steam, and then went and did a bunch of Unity development for marketing, and then split off, and now I'm working on my own projects again. So yeah, I've been game deving for quite a while. If you count college for like 10 or 15 years, if you count college. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll be doing this a lot, so feel free to pop in and see how things are going later. Let's see. All right, so got a little grid. And I am going to be wrapping this stream in about 15 minutes probably. Maybe doing another segment later. I really want to keep working on this because I'm having fun, but I have to go do parent things. Let's see. Cool, so let me see if the debug view will let me see each of these build slots has neighbors. Look at that. Okay, if I can make this hold still for a second. Let me restart here. It looks like I actually can check if this worked. So debug view, neighbors. That's a corner one, so it should have 2 neighbors, and it does. And they are east and north. Yeah, that is correct. This one should have 3 neighbors, everything except west, so everything except index 2. Yep, 0, 1, skip 2, 3. Nice. This actually worked. Let me check if the ones on the edges on the other side are good. 0 is blank. There's a corner. Only 2 neighbors. 2 and 3. Yep, this worked perfectly. Look at that. Beautiful. All right, so we're populating neighbors. Can't believe I actually did that without screwing it up. All right. Even once. All right. So, do I want to start another feature or just call it here? Because I got about 10 or 15 minutes till when I was gonna wrap. I'll have this assign the parent chunk, like the cockpit, to 0, 0. How do we know where 0, 0 is? It's all offset. The build slot that is at let's see, if the minimum x is 0, say the minimum x is -1, then the cockpit is going to be at index 1. If the minimum x is 2, then it's going to be 2. Okay, so I think this is right. Cockpit. Build piece is what I called it. Maybe I should rename this all ship piece. Cockpit. Oops. No. Oh, if you Control C at the end of a line, it copies the line. I never knew that. It's kind of handy. All right. So this is basically the 0, 0 position. Yeah. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Well, this ain't bad for a 3-hour prototype. I've got a little grid appearing, got movement, background, the beginnings of snap points, a little bit of visual feedback on the movement. Got the physics a little bit tuned, at least for starters. I think we need to make it so that when the ship is more massive, it handles slower by kind of counting the number of chunks in it. And possibly some stuff where we have to figure out where the center of gravity is, if it's not going to handle that on its own. But yeah, not bad. Good start. If you've been watching, thank you for watching. And I'll be doing a lot of this in the next week. So keep an eye out. I'm not posting any kind of schedule. I might work on this some over the weekend just to keep it going. But if not, then I'll be resuming this on Monday.